All right. Where'd that go? There it is. All right. All right. Welcome. Good morning. What is over here? All right. Good morning. Good day. Happy Saturday. Thank you for tuning in. Anyone here? What is that? All messages you sent. Yeah, that's the idea of a chat, I thought. Okay. For anyone new, welcome. First of all, thanks for watching. My name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord, and I stream at this time around 10 a.m. Central Time each week, working on some stuff related to CircuitPython. If you haven't caught the stream before and you or you don't know what CircuitPython is, you can learn more at the main website here, circuitpython.org. It is basically a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers. Most typically, the way it works, you plug it into your computer, it shows up like a thumb drive. You can edit a Python code file on that thumb drive, and then when you save it, the microcontroller, the actual little computer that's in these chips, excuse me, will execute the Python code for you, and then you can hook up all sorts of other peripherals. Today, we are working mostly with a display. In particular, it's a display that is hooked up. If we search up like the Metro RP2350, it has this HSTX ribbon cable connector over here, which can go to a DVI breakout. This little thing here. So that ribbon cable connects over to here, and then this is a DVI breakout, but it does have a plug which is shaped like an HDMI cable. You can plug that into a monitor, and as long as the monitor supports that sort of like fallback DVI inside the HDMI cable thing going on there, then you will see your display on the screen. As always, thanks to Adafruit. Adafruit is a hardware and software company based out of New York. They made this little adapter thing here. They made the Metro, which we searched up over here, and loads of other devices. And Adafruit is responsible for CircuitPython by way of paying the people who work on the project, including myself. CircuitPython is free to use. Anyone's allowed to take CircuitPython, make a copy of it, like put it on your device, use it in your project, use it in your product, and sell it. All of those things are allowed with CircuitPython, no problem. And the way that that is possible is by Adafruit paying the people who work on that software and then choosing to publish it under an open license like that. So thanks to them as always. If you want to help support CircuitPython and Adafruit, one of the easiest ways to do it is just purchase hardware from them over at adafruit.com. So today, I wanted to show this cool thing that Scott was working on last week. And then we'll go ahead and just use this font as well to start building a menu, a launcher menu. So for anyone that doesn't know, last week Scott was working on LVGL bin font format. So I was not familiar with this before, but it turns out LVGL, they have a binary font format, which kind of defines this protocol that's a really efficient sort of way to compact a font into a file. And then, you know, in LVGL land, they have obviously their own parser, which can parse that file and then get it into bitmaps or whatever they need in order to put it on the display. Scott has created a parser for CircuitPython in the bitmap font library that allows it to load that same LVGL bin font format. So we're going to start with just loading this up and actually using it, which there is a sample font that is checked into the repo. Unifont ASCII emoji. Which I don't think I have done on this device yet. So I have the FruitJam plugged in, so what I'll do is actually just open this repo, I think. Unifont 1602, I think 16, well, I think they are 16 by 16, the glyphs. We can close this one, I don't need this right now. I don't know what the O2 part of that is. I'll make a folder, fonts. Put that in there. And let's see, how big is that? That is, I don't know. Open it. Well, GitHub will tell us, right? $86K. And then we do need a label. Simple test is probably easiest to start with. I have this code running. Let's see here. Where's this one? There it is. I have this. Yeah, this thing is totally changing its own size occasionally. Like it snaps back to the smaller size. I guess technically maybe this is the real size. I mean, it's stretched wide, I think, so it's not exactly the real size, but vertically maybe the real size. Anyway, I want it a bit bigger. I have this example running. I'll save this off. This is just demoing. I wanted to make like a self-contained version of the way that we did the coloring in the FruitJam animation last night on Deep Dive. So this is just a small 50 lines that does just the recoloring of a grayscale photo, which I think could be a cool demo to put somewhere. Recolor. That's good. One thing is, this has moved. Well, I don't know if... Yeah. I don't know if it's moved on TFTs exactly. I'm not clear on that. This is where you access the HSTX display, though. And then our file is fonts and unifont, that one. Don't really need the rest of this. So by default, that will just show that. There's that hello world, okay. And then, you know, more or less, we could always do that, so that's not that fun. So let's also go and grab some emojis. Snake emoji, keyboard emoji, and what else? Like maybe the apple for FruitJam. Actually 2 apples, and we're in a monocolor thing, so I don't know that it matters too much. Put that, and there we go. Actually, keyboard doesn't seem to have showed up, I think. Interesting. Oh, that one is 2 width, maybe? I know keyboard works because I saw Scott show it in the terminal. So, oh, that's interesting. Oh, there's like a fallback keyboard. Maybe that was like a colored keyboard or something. Nope, that keyboard doesn't go either. Okay. Alright, we'll go with snake and apple for now. Maybe there's no keyboard in, but I mean, like I said, I saw Scott show the keyboard, so I don't know. We'll put a pineapple also. Like. Okay, there we go. Can have a pineapple and an apple. Okay, so this is pretty cool. It is a bit different than the emoji that I worked on a couple of weeks ago, which were the Serenity OS ones. Those are colored, whereas these are monocolor. And the other thing is Scott's working on building these into the core, or building support for this type of font into the core for use with terminal IO. So whenever you see like this screen, you're looking at a terminal IO terminal instance. So in the future, this will have the ability to have emojis and indeed other language characters as well, potentially like Asian characters, Japanese, Korean, Chinese characters from this Uni Foundry that has a bunch of different sets of characters. Okay, so this is pretty sweet, and it's brand new. If you are interested in showing emojis in your font in CircuitPython, then definitely check this out. It's super easy to hook up. All you need is the latest version of bitmap font. You need a emoji bin file, or you need a font file that is a LVGL bin, and then there is the emoji one in the examples of the bitmap font repo. But you can also make your own, or maybe convert your own is a better way to put it. So you go to this converter, you can actually drop, I think, a choose binary, and then I think you can drop a TTF file. So you go get a font file as a TTF, you can drop it here. It looks like you can even include a custom character set, which is pretty cool. So you can, if you know that you're only using a limited character set, you can pare it down to that to save file size. And then, yeah, I don't know. I think we would want to leave that there. I don't know for sure if the CircuitPython thing supports higher numbers. You can choose the size for it, and then you can export it with the button submit, I guess, probably, and then it will download you the bin file. And so Scott took the, I believe, in order to create that one, what Scott did is use the Unifoundry. Maybe it's in the link, actually. Let's see, this format. No, that's the documentation of the format. I think Unifoundry fonts, maybe? So there's these, which are like bitmaps. I think OTF. If nothing else, I'm pretty sure you can convert OTF to TTF. So you might have downloaded this and then converted it to TTF, or it's possible this page might support it, even though it doesn't say that. But in any case, I'm pretty sure you can convert from OTF to TTF pretty easily. And so I think that's where that one came from. It was using the one of these, plane 1, plane 0, whichever one has got the emojis in it. Or maybe a subset. I don't know if it actually has all of these. Asian characters or not. Yeah, it's got a lot of the emoji sets in it. Okay, so that is super cool. I'm always excited about new font stuff, new display stuff, so I report to Scott for adding this. I think this is going to be really cool. And then I'll just keep using this font, and I would like to work on a menu system, a launcher, like a desktop thing. And I think I want icons, like a grid of icons. Pretty similar to how I laid out the memory game. I think what we'll do is let's just take font and put that there, and we can get rid of the rest of this stuff for now. I'm gonna want a main group. And I think I would like a kind of just config dictionary type thing, which is gonna have how general do we want to try to make this? I don't want it to be necessarily too general, but it could do something like have a title. We'll just set it to something like this to start with. I'm thinking it has a width in cells, so like the number of cells in the grid. And I will set that to, I think, 6, because I think that's going to be a decent number with the 320 by 240 display. Nope. And then we will have the programs, the apps, the things that are going to be in the launcher. So I will just call them apps, and I think that can be a list, because those are going to be in order, essentially, starting in the top left and just working their way across and down. And each one of those is going to represent like one icon on the home screen, and that's going to have a title. So I'll say my first one is going to be the snake game. Snake. I think it can have an icon, but the icon is allowed to be none, and we'll have a default for none. In fact, actually, let's make it snake emoji, right? What are we doing here if we're not going to use the snake emoji? Come on now. I do need to copy another one, though. That's the wrong thing. Emoji copy. Going at the beginning, too. Okay, and then I think I will just grab... We need Grid layout, text box. Maybe? Not sure. We could probably just use label, I think. Well, text box would allow us to center it. Which would be nice, but I don't know if we know the right width. I guess we'd use text box. Well, actually, we'll definitely know the right width because we have to declare a width on the grid layout, and then we can divide that by the number of cells and the padding and whatever. Yeah. Okay, and then I basically want the grid layout set up in the loop that populates it. It's here. Ish. There's the list that the loop that populates it. Where's the actual setup though? This menu grid. It can, yeah, that's fine for right now. 260 by 200. Grid size is the height and the width from this. So config width height. And we could just loop over the, we don't have to loop X and Y necessarily, we could just loop over the apps. So for app in config apps, we are gonna add content, well, we're gonna create a new, a bunch of things, honestly. So let's make a cell group. That's a group. We're gonna make a, if the icon exists, we want to make that, well, and we want to use a default one if it doesn't. So I need a default one. It's like 32 by 32. Do I dare go like digging around in my icons to find something, or do I just use like a colored placeholder? Okay, let's say if I can find one within like 3 minutes, I'll use it. What would make a good like default? They didn't select a thing, like a question mark, green square, nuclear icon, key. It's the file thing, wouldn't be terrible. Star, that might be the winner. Or an I, or okay, question mark. Yeah, they call it a help button, but we'll just say question mark is the default icon, I think. Grab that. It's a PNG. We'll call that default icon. So if app icon is not, so we'll say if it is none, then we want to load the default icon. In fact, the default icon, we should just load it once up here. So default icon bitmap, load. It's actually a PNG though. It's called default icon. And that also comes back from that thing. So we'll say if it is none, then we're going to go icon tile grid is a new tile grid with the bitmap of the default icon and a pixel shader of the icon palette. We are going to add that to the cell group, and then we're going to make a title for that as well. So let's make a text box. Title text box. So that needs a font, which we have created already. Text is going to be the title, app.title, XY. Don't need those right now. Config, width, those are not correct. Height, let's just say 16. We want one row. I'm pretty sure this font is 16 by 16 for each glyph, so 16 high means one row. Width, we want, hopefully it's going to fit. Really, width, we want 260 divided by 6. Or, I don't know, can we access that? Maybe we could say, bring these into variables. 60 height. Okay, width and height there, and then this is going to be that width divided by the config width, because that's in cells. Maybe we should probably change one or both of those to be more specific, so they're not just both called width, even though they're different units. Okay, text app type. Yep. And then let's add that to the cell group, and then what we want is the title text dot y to be, we want it to go below the icon. So this is going to be icon tile grid dot y plus icon tile grid dot tile height, because that is in pixels. Except a lot of this stuff doesn't need to be inside of here. That stuff's going to be back out there. Else, if it did have an icon, then we are going to load the icon first, then make the tile grid. We will load app icon. Can I delete that? Okay, so that's going to put that into the cell group, and then we want to add the cell group to the grid. So menu grid dot add content. That takes the cell group and the XY position. Grid position, cell size. So we're just going to do all of our cells are 1 by 1. It's probably the default, but I'll just pass it anyway. Position, XY, grid, position. So we actually need to enumerate this. Enumerate. Because we want to know the index also. And then the position is actually, so the X is The x is the modulus of, so I modulus by the config width, and then the y is I integer division over width. And then the actual item, which I have just done this whole thing backwards, but that's going to be cell group we want to add. Okay. That should add one cell in the grid for each app in the list. Get the default icons for any that don't have it. We want to display root group equals main group, and we also want to main group and put the menu grid inside of that. Let's see those. No module, display layout. Install auto. I actually saw HugReport, also NearDoc, put a new thing, a PR for Circup to make auto better, to make it recursive. Right now it won't. Like, if a thing that imports a thing, if you import a thing that imports a different thing, it won't find the second one of those currently, but that PR makes it so it will, which is pretty cool. Unsupported bitmap type 45. That's not supposed to be that, obviously. There we go. Group has no width. That is true. Oh, that is true. Actually solved this problem once. What's up, Johnny? Nice to see you, my friend. Let's see. Where did I use this? I used this on the Matrix portal, because one day we made a like a scrolling group size. Did not make a class. All right. Slight detour. I really want to be able to put a group inside of the grid, and the grid really doesn't want me to do that because the grid is trying to access the width of whatever the thing we put inside of it is, and group doesn't have width, so we can't do that. So what I'm going to do is make a subclass of group that does have a width and use this function, which I already wrote a while ago. And then we'll be able to hopefully put it in. So we're going to call this what? Like width group? That's kind of a dumb name. Measured group? Also kind of a dumb name. I mean, it's more descriptive, so it's better, but I mean, I guess we could implement height as well. I hadn't really... Does the grid need height? Actually, the grid might need height. I don't know. Okay, let's call it measured group. This, I'm just going to blast in here, but eventually we'll put it in the class measured group. That extends display.io group. Import display.io. Init. Args, quargs. Actually, group. I don't know if it matters. Sized group. Sized group, I actually do like sized group. Sized group. Sized group. Thank you. Sized group. Okay, so we'll just give it, so we'll say at property def width. And this is all of the logic that it needs to do that. Oh, this is actually already doing width and height. So this should have not been called width. It should have been called like size. And this is not recursive either. So if you were to have a group, if you were to put a group inside of this, it wouldn't recurse. Hmm. Yeah, this doesn't handle if you had a group inside the group, which is definitely possible, but that's fine, I think. So let's say I guess we'll actually call this one size, and that is self. That can return the tuple. The parentheses aren't really redundant. They're making it clear it's a tuple, but okay. And then you're not allowed to set the size, but we will also just make a height and a width. And yeah, it's kind of inefficient because if anything says like check the height and then check the width, it's going to call size twice in a row, which is going to loop over all the elements, but that's fine for now. 0. I'm a system architect, so naming stuff is what I do. Nice. I definitely appreciate it. Self size 1, okay. Because we don't need any more. Now we have a sized group, and we should be able to use that for cell sized group. I don't know why I called it that way, though. That's kind of weird. It's a little more customary. Okay. What does that do now? Can import sized group. 17. Sized group. Sized group. Why? Okay, yeah. I swear sometimes that happens. So like, obviously that just failed several times, but it actually worked. Okay, so yeah, one actually really big problem we have is the icons are 32 by 32. The font characters are 16 by 16. That's half the size of the icons. So either we need way bigger icons or way smaller fonts, and we can't really make the font smaller. So maybe this shouldn't be a grid. Or else it needs to be a much smaller grid. Because basically we didn't even fit two... Well, we fit 2 characters, but one of them was a space. Need way more room. The font, what is that? 260 over 6. What is that? It's gonna be like 40 something. Yeah, we need it way, way bigger. I almost want to just ditch the grid already. We have, I think there's like grid lines, right? Grid lines? Grid lines. Can't really tell how big the grid is right now. Maybe, but it's gonna, like, we'll need it to scroll, probably. So I was thinking, like, 6x4 is 24 things. That's quite a lot. I don't know that it would need to scroll with that many, but we will. Less. Divider lines, the color in hexadecimal. Divider lines. Oh, nope, that was wrong. We need that. There we go. Didn't actually work. Boolean. Wait, what? Oh, divider line color. But it's not very useful because I don't have more apps, basically. Wish I could see where the background was. Yeah. Okay. We are cutting off already a character, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So right now the max is 8 characters. This XY is wrong because of how labels work. This title X. This is actually going to be anchored position. Let's call it 0 and that. Anchored anchor point 0, 0. Basically the X is actually, or the Y is actually at the half point, and I want to scoot it down. I want the top of the label to be below the bottom of the icon. Okay, so if we stuck with 32 by 32 icons, I mean, honestly, we could probably get up to 48 by 48. We could fit 6 like this, and then I guess ultimately there could be pagination. And we still have room, I think, to scoot this whole thing down to make a title at the top. And then if we are going to have pagination, we'll need like on-screen controls for up and down, because we want it to be controllable with a mouse or a controller. We'll have like up and down arrows maybe along the side. Could we fit 64 by 64? That looks pretty good. I was like, isn't that the same? Yes, because I did not change the code. Okay. That might be the winner. That makes it basically the same as text. And realistically, we could maybe gain... Oh wait, we have one more character? We have one more character or two more characters? We have one more character. Although text box does the hyphen. Does it really do that? I didn't know that. Totally does. Interesting. We could use scrolling text box, I guess. I want to go down the scrolling route. I don't know that I do. I think... So, I mean, we have a little bit of room. So what is that? 5, 6, 7, 8. Right now, 8 is the max. Could we get that up to 10? Or is that going to be not enough room for up-down arrows? We could use right-left arrows instead. If we end up, like, without room on the side. So if we wanted to get 2 more characters in each, that's another 32 pixels. I don't know that we're going to be able to get there. It basically just requires making this bigger. Feel like if we were on 300. So with 300, we did fit the 2 A's. Did we fit a, could we fit a third A? I don't think so. We can, actually. So that gets us up to 10. And there's still plenty of room at the bottom. So my grid lines are drawn right now, but I think that I'm going to turn those back off ultimately. I think. Yeah. I'm going to turn the grid lines back off ultimately. And then okay, so let's do two things real quick. Let's center the icons and center the text. So that is actually one reason why we might not want to use the scrolling one, is I don't think it has the ability to center. That would need some kind of mashup of text box and scrolling text. Scrolling label, I think it's called. So to center this is easy, actually. That's just like alignment or something. I don't think that's the right name, though. Actually, sure, this thing doesn't know because I don't think I have that installed. Align, it is align, but it's not just center. It needs to be one of these constants. Okay, there we go. So now these ones that aren't 10 characters are centered in their cell. And then the icon we can do as well by saying tg.x equals, I'm going to keep a variable with cell width. So that's going to be cell width over 2 minus the width of the tile grid over 2, which is tile width in our case because it's 1 by 1 tile grid. All right, there we go. Centered icon, centered text. Let's get rid of the grid lines for now. Put this to false in case we want to bring it back later. And I think let's scoot it down a little bit to where there's enough room for a title at the top, but then hopefully also enough room for left and right buttons at the bottom to like go through pages. Does grid layout offer a remove content? We might end up having to like change grid layout here some. Because there's an add content. A get cell. So which cell? That'll be helpful for clicking. Yeah, but there's no remove content. I think we're going to want to remove, or like a pop content, really. Because what we can do is we can say pop, you give it an XY, and it will take the cell content, return it to you, and get it out of everything that it's in that makes it a part of the grid. Because if we want to have paginations, we need to be able to swap what's in the grid, because basically when you click the next button, what it would need to do is go through the grid, remove the items that are currently in there, or, I mean, yeah, remove that, because we probably go by pages, not just scroll by one. So remove all the items that are in there, get the next set of 6 items from the config list, and then put those next, like, build those next set of icons and put them in the grid. And then we kind of just keep doing that. I guess maybe... So, okay, so one thing we could... I'm thinking about this as, like, remove them from the grid, add new ones. We don't have to do that necessarily. We could just keep them in the grid and just change the stuff, right? Title text, we can just say title text.text equals a different app, and we can also say icon equals, well, icon.bitmap equals a new bitmap, and then .pixel shader equals a new pixel shader. Yeah, okay, so we don't need remove, actually. That's overcomplicating it. I think we just leave those objects there and we change their properties in order to update which apps are showing, basically. So you'll be able to page through the list, and we'll just grab the next set of 6 from here and plop all of its data into the labels and the icons. Okay, let's do scoot it down. So right now we're at 1010. Let's make that another 16 so we have room for a label. So if that was 26, what would that look like? Yeah, so we should be able to put a label that's 5 pixels from the top. And then basically we have all the room down here that we could do buttons. We could maybe squeeze a few more out. We don't necessarily need 5 pixels there. We could go down to like 2 or 3 potentially. The big thing is we just don't want it like touching the top. We want at least 1. Realistically, maybe 2 would look a little better than 1 in most cases. But after that, it's kind of like... Depends a lot on the display, TBH. There's like 1 white line. What is that? There's like 1 white line at the top of this. What's that about? Actually want the 64 one. Were all of them like that? I don't know. Oh, there, here. We have another PNG bug? Alright, well, honestly, it doesn't matter that much because I can just bitmap this. Well, let's make pink also the background so that we can do transparency. Boom. Oh, that's gonna mess up. We actually need to do that after, don't we? Yeah, we need to do that after. Okay, let's just leave that. We need to do mode, indexed, invert, and then we also now need to go back to RGB so that we can use pink, and then we can fill this. And then we can go back to indexed. And how many colors do we have? A lot. We want pink at the beginning. Export this as default icon 64 bitmap. And then this can be the bitmap one instead. And we can also say default palette.make transparent 0. There we go. Okay, no more line at the top. I don't know what that was about, but it's gone now. You know the... Second? So the color, the teal was actually just so that I could, like, I was trying to, this thing shrunk itself again. I was trying to just tell, like, where the actual display was within this, like, windowed, because, like, this has extra pixels that are not part of the display, that are just part of the OBS window. And the teal allowed me to do that. But it's got kind of a, like, Windows 95-ish vibe, right? Wasn't there a teal background there? It's got a vibe that I'm kind of is growing on me a little bit, the teal. But eventually we'll probably go back to black. But just wanted to note that it is actually growing on me a little bit, the teal. We'd want to maybe take it just a tad darker still, but kind of digging it. All right. What should we do? Let's put the title. So we made a title of the menu here. So let's do that. Title. So let's call this menu title. Text. I'll just use a text box for it as well. We'll actually just use a label for it. Bitmap label. From, I don't really need the text box because I can center it more easily. Yeah, I can center it more easily. Basically, my width is not as constrained, right? Inside the grid, the width is way more constrained. And we don't want the text to run outside of the grid cell. So the text box will contain it for us. The label, I mean the title label, I guess it could technically run outside of it. But I feel like just use a shorter, like, title. That's going to be a lot of text if you manage to go all the way across the screen. And we can still center it easily because we have anchor point and stuff, right? So I will use font. I will say text is config title. We could call that top one menu title, maybe. Probably seems good, I think. And this can be centered, so menu title, anchor point 0.5, 0.5. Good position, display width over 2, and then pixels from the top, main group, and menu title. A module. Bitmap Lebla. Frame buffer display has no object width. Okay, fair enough. Apparently I can't spell. There we go. Launcher menu. We have our icons. And yeah, let's make a left and a right down there, and those are going to be much smaller. But there are arrows in this. Well, these arrows are like gradient-y. I don't really want that, honestly. We could use double arrows. We need both. Is there a good arrow in this one? Here we'll end up smaller. Could use, so there's arrows, yeah. We could go, yeah, there's left and right, next and previous. Grab those. What are those called? Previous and next. That is, I'm gonna just use right and left because it's easier in my head. But these are PNGs. We're probably going to have the same problem, right? Well, let's find out. Left arrow. Actually, right arrow. I'm going to call it arrow right so that they end up next to each other when the file names are sorted by alphabetical. Left. So we can do this at the end of that. So let's say left bitmap and left palette is load arrow left, right, right, right. I'm going to use anchored tile grid because it's kind of convenient for this. From Adafruit anchored tile grid import anchored grid. Circup that. Save first, so Circup didn't actually see that. There we go. We've loaded those. I'm going to make a left, I'll just call it left TG, even though it's actually going to be an anchored tile grid, which is going to have bitmap of left and pixel shader of left. And then we'll say left TG. I mean, this one, I guess it doesn't matter too much, but we'll say anchor point 0, 0, and then we... Actually, you know what we'll do is we'll say anchor point 0 and 1.0. So we anchor it to the bottom of that, and then we'll say anchored position, we'll say 2, and then we'll say display dot height -2. So 2 pixels from the bottom and 2 pixels from the left edge. And then I'm just going to copy this all for right. Actually, the thing will probably do this for me. No? Okay. Not at all. Okay, well, fair enough. If we give it some more. It's interesting to me the stuff that the old autocomplete AI bot here can figure out versus the stuff that it can't. Sometimes it makes suggestions that surprise me with how correct they are, and other times it just doesn't make suggestions that seem really obvious. Okay, so this is going to be also display width this time, and then we'll -2 from there as well. So bottom right corner for the right one, and bottom left corner for the left one. And then we'll add both of those to main group. Is that even... Is there enough room for those? Okay, so the colors are totally all messed up. I don't know at all what's going on with the colors, but that's fine, because we'll probably just bitmap that the same way. And yeah, those I think are a fine size. That's 24, I think. I'll probably still put them in buttons. Like, these are just the icon. I think it'd be good to have, like, an actual button that's bigger. So if you're using a mouse, you don't have to be quite as precise. But this is pretty good. We could probably scoot it to match this edge as well, actually. Even though you might not always see that edge if you don't have a label that's 10 characters. All right, let's convert these to bitmap, because that is wonky. I don't know what's going on there. I think that's more PNG loading bugs in image load, unfortunately. You gotta probably look into that. All right, so this has transparency. Like, these are half transparent pixels. So what I'm going to do is go mode, indexed, That's going to get rid of the transparency and make a new layer. We can go back to RGB because I want to be able to use my pink. And then we can fill this. And honestly, should we bother just doing the arrow by itself? I think let's just make a button. So let's go new. So this is 24 by 24. Technically, the arrow is actually 23 pixels tall, right? Because there's an empty one here. So if our button was 20, the arrow is 23. We want an odd size so that the arrow can be centered vertically. If we did 25, there would be 1 pixel on either side of the arrow. We did 27, we could have 2 pixels on either side of the arrow. Let's see if 27 will fit. If it does, I think that's probably a good one to use. And we'll say the width is going to be so do I want to have the word next? I don't think so, honestly. I think I just want the button by itself. Yeah, I think I just want the button. So it doesn't need to be super wide, but I mean, the whole point here is to make it wider than the icon by itself to give it a little bit more click region, basically. So let's say, is 3 times too much? It'd be 60, 72. I don't think we need quite that much. 48 is double. Let's try. So our icons are 64. We could be at least that. Honestly, 3 times might be fine. Let's try 3 times. So 72 by 27. Transparency. Let's grab arrow, paste it, scoot it down so it's in the middle. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know why that went away, but that's fine. So there's that. So then basically, I'm going to start with just a real basic I'm going to start with just a real basic kind of rounded rect sort of thing. I think I can select this whole thing and then do rounded. Don't want 50%. They looking more like that. What does that look like? It's really only cutting out 3 pixels. We can go a little bigger than that actually then. Yeah. And I think we want to plan for a black background. So I think I'm going to make the buttons green because the arrows are green and the apple in the animation stays on green at the end. So green sort of feels like the default sort of terminal color, so to speak, in my head, at least at this point. So I'm going to go fill this with green. Okay, we need to go back to it's actually kind of annoying, but so what we're gonna do is just plot a green pixel, then go back to indexed. Actually, I could maybe, well, no, there's anti-aliasing's already turned off. I don't know how to do that. Anyway, if we do this though, then we'll get. Why is that happening? I think this is messed up because I selected. So I'm just going to make a green dot. We're in RGB. I'm going to change right now to indexed. I'm going to redo this whole select thing because I'm pretty sure having that selected when I change the modes, like, only change the selected part or vice versa, or somehow just made it so the modes were not working. I don't know. Why is that doing that? This should not be doing that. It doesn't even have this on, for one thing. So I think that means that rounded rect is actually doing like a feathered selection, which I don't want. It's kind of annoying. Okay, we could use this. This is like a painful way to do this, but it's gonna work at least. Okay. And then I don't want, obviously, the entire thing green. We don't want green on green, but what we can do now is shrink by like 2, delete, and end up, oh, we can't do 2 though. So we have to shrink by 1. Means we're back to having only 1 pixel of adding between the arrow and the edge, but it'll be for now. Okay. And then I think I am gonna do black. Do that because not an RGB. We need to go back to RGB so that we can use more colors. That was black. And then I want pink in the corners. Which in our case is not going to matter because ultimately I think we're going to go back to black on the background anyway. But in case it goes somewhere else, this way we'll have a black button. You'll be able to see through the color to the background. We could put pink in here and then the whole button would be transparent, but depending on the background color, it might look wonky. Back to indexed. Oh, it's all wrecked. Why did it get all wrecked? I think maybe we need to merge this. Okay, this is going to be left, arrow left, arrow right. But it's going to be a bitmap now. Oh, did I move pink to the beginning? I did. Did not. Ironically, though, we did almost end up with the transparency in the button. Save that. Go. Okay. And yeah, I think I'll just put this back to black now. There we go. And let's do the other one. We're awfully tight, but could maybe go back to the 48 by 48 icons. Or we could possibly, do we have room to shrink here? Go like 196. Yeah, we do actually have a little bit of room to shrink that way. Okay, that's what we could do. Yeah. Would this be 10? Because I did, and then my thing is 300 and my size is 320. Yeah. It's kind of in line with the edge of that, I guess. And I'm actually going to cheat a little bit and just go undo a few steps until we get to here. Hide that. Open this. Convert this to indexed. Copy. Paste. Why is that pixel gone? Weird. Honestly, it's actually just really weird how different these two are. Like, this has this light, and this doesn't really. What if we just flip this? Just flip this. It's on the right there. That looks stupid. The light look messed up. I mean, this doesn't look straight. There's like this kind of has a chunk in it, and then the missing pixel at the end is kind of weird. And the fact that the light is different is weird to me too. Also, there's no point either. Maybe this was just rotated around and the algorithm that did it wasn't great. I think I'm going to stick with the flipped one. I guess the light, I think the light's probably not technically right because that light will look like it's coming from the opposite direction of the other arrow or whatever, but I don't think I care enough about that. We're just going to go with this. Realistically, the arrow could be changed anyway to be, is this straight? Yeah. The arrow could be changed to be a solid color anyway. It could just, might as well be solid green or something, honestly. Like the same color as the border would be fine, in fact, and we could just make it a little smaller. I don't know. It's whatever. I'll leave it like this for now, but. Alright, let's delete that. Let's go here. Let's unselect everything. Let's go mode indexed. Oh my goodness. Why did that happen? We need to merge first. Merge down, unselect everything. mode indexed. Okay, there we go. Colors, map, rearrange, put pink at 0. Save, export, arrow left. Instead of -2. There we go. Okay. BRB, I gotta run through the restroom. Okay. Another thing that we actually need in this is the file that it is going to launch. So snake could be code snake game.py. And I will just, I have a mouse plugged in right now. Mouse of actually I have a keyboard plugged in right now, but I am gonna change to a mouse, or just plug in a mouse also. No, I'm gonna change to a mouse. Should have mouse cursor probably. If not, I'll download it, I guess. Scan for mice, scan for USB devices, connect to the first one and assume it's a mouse. Worry about if it's not actually a mouse later. I don't know if there's a way to tell very easily. Maybe there must be, right? A buffer. I'm gonna call this mouse buffer. And import array. Feed this and update the mouse. Buff. Let's see if that works. I do not have the cursor. I think I must have wiped this at some point. That do transparency? Yeah. Buff is not defined, 159. Buff. I don't think I added that to the group anyway, so I don't think it was visible, but I did move it and it tried to update, and that's how I guess we know that the actual mouse part of it worked, just not the visual. We need to append the mouse tile grid to that as the last thing. There we go. Okay, so now when we click on that one, we want to launch the snake game, or more specifically, when we click on any of them, we want to launch the thing they have listed for file. So the way that I will do that is so we can check for clicks. We could check for actually specifically a left click, because we don't really care about the others, I don't think. This can be 0 for left click. This is all mouse buff. So if the mouse is clicked down, the left button, then we want to check if one of the cells in the grid was clicked, and it has which cell contains, which will either return none or a cell coordinate. So we could say clicked cell equals grid, menu grid, which cell contains XY of the mouse tg.x and y. And then if clicked cell is not none, we can go and try to launch the one, which is what? Supervisor.set next code file, config. So it's going to be config apps index file. What we need to get index is clicked cell y times config width plus clicked cell x. That's going to give us the index into the list of apps file and set next code, and then supervisor.reload. I think that will launch the other thing. Like this. Boom, snake game. Now snake game currently has this code releasing the display and reinitializing it. I'm actually going to change that. I think I'll update. Oh, actually this is here. Let me just do this. Okay, I think that is messed up now because of my release displays, so I'm just going to reset. Okay, so this time we didn't lose the display. We went back to the REPL for a second, but we didn't get the blank, like, no input, which is nice because we didn't release. I I don't actually have a keyboard plugged in right now. I could plug this one in. I think this is a keyboard, but I suspect it won't. I don't think it's hot plugged. Maybe. Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay, so now we have Snake. I can play. Not very well. Just run into the edge, and then if I do Q, it quits to REPL currently, but I'm going to change that as well, and what this is going to do is go back to CodePy. So right now this just does break, but instead what it's going to do is just supervisor.reload, which will go back to CodePy, which is the menu. We could technically, I guess, like set it to menu, but we could say menu.py or something, but oh, now the mouse doesn't work. Okay, the mouse doesn't work because that for loop actually sets it to... I think that for loop actually sets it to the last one it finds, not the first one, and in any case, that's just random anyway. Well, it's probably not random, but I don't know how the order is decided, and it's not a good way to do it. So instead, what we'll do is... I don't know. How do we... It'd be real nice if we could say, like, is this thing a mouse? And if so, then, like, we want to use it. So we get none for serial number. That's kind of useless. Let's not bother printing that. Is there anything else here that's, like, useful to print? Manufacturer, product, ID vendor. There's nothing else on there. I think... How, I mean, there must be a way, though, to know, because otherwise, like, how would it ever know what kind of device it is? There must be some kind of, like, startup thing where it can, where the host can check, like... This is USB host. I'm using USB host, I guess. I'm using just USB.core. USB.core. Vendor, product, serial number, product, manufacturer, bus. Port numbers. I think that's useful. Speed. Write, read. Control transfer. Kernel driver. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I don't know. There's no, like, type or descriptor. Isn't that a thing? USB descriptor? Is that a thing I made up? I feel like that's a thing, maybe. Okay, in my case, I guess this is probably the mouse. I don't really want to do it this way, but I will, for now, just use vendor ID, product ID. So ID vendor, vendor. Food. It's funny. Okay, hopefully that will just find the mouse only, and then by subject not iterable. So in that case, it only finds one, so it doesn't need a for loop. But if I'm honest, that kind of is lame that you have to do that, right? Like, it'd be really nice if it could tell which one was which, and then you could say, like, find all of them, and then the one that's the mouse is the one we care about in this script, and the keyboard, just let it keep doing its own thing. But we'll worry about that later. I shouldn't call it lame. It's kind of not a great way to put it, but what I mean though is, like, in the code there should be a way just for this to not need the product ID, VID. That would be cool if there was. We'll say device, and then we'll say mouse equals device, and then we could just do mouse as this. We don't need this. And then we don't really need to print the stuff because we looked it up directly. I don't know if a mouse can actually be attached, but that's cool. I think if we leave that now, it should work, except it doesn't really have the mouse drawn anywhere. Oh. Is it in the bottom corner? Shouldn't it start in the center? I don't know what that was. It's in the center now, though, so I'll pretend like I didn't see that. Okay, so if we click Snake, we launch Snake, I have the keyboard, press a key, and it doesn't work. But we might have detached? We might have detached the kernel driver from the keyboard or whatever back when I still had the for loop. I'm going to give it like a hard reset here with a power unplug replug. We're going to try this again. Yeah, there we go. I think we probably got kernel detached because of that loop from before. We can get some apples, we can hit the edge, and then I can press Q and we go back to the menu. And then I could click on Snake again and it will launch Snake for us. Sweet. Q, that gets us back to here. Cool. All right. Launching is working. We'll eventually hide and show these based on necessity. Like right now I only have 6 apps in the list. Technically we wouldn't need the arrows, right? So we'll have it set up to where only if there's at least 7, then it shows the right arrow. And then only if you're on, you know, page 2 or greater does it show the left arrow. And we can also hide the right arrow at the last page too. And I was gonna put in the memory game, but the memory game kind of has the same problem that I just went through with the mouse. Gosh, we really need a way to be able to tell it's a mouse. What is a USB? Let's try to poke around on this just a tad. What is a USB host descriptor? Isn't that a thing? It sounds like it would describe the thing. Oh, I read this before? Oh my gosh, there's 5 different kinds of descriptors. Yeah, this is totally what we want. Hard to read. Okay, so there's USB host descriptor. There's a library. git configuration descriptor from the device. Spend the last couple of minutes seeing if we can figure this out, because it'd be really cool to not have these hard-coded. Alright, so let's go back to the loop. We're going to wreck the keyboard a few times while we try this, but that's okay. I'll just reset in between. Okay, does just not offer import. Don't get anything there. Maybe we just print this and see if there's anything useful. In fact, why don't I not do the rest of this? Why don't we just run to there and not do anything else for now? That way we won't wreck the keyboard. Device is not iterable. So I left the find. We want find all. Find all true. Okay, we got a byte array. Okay. So there's surely something inside that byte array that tells us it's a mouse. Probably. Does this actually do anything else with it? It does. Interface. Okay, let's do this part too. You're in. Okay, so in my case, the mouse is which one? I put that in the comment here. C52F is the actual mouse. So that is right now the first one. And it is having two interfaces, class 3, subclass 1, on interface 0. On interface 1, it's class 3, subclass 0. This has an in of 81. This has an in of 82. Value 1 also. Value of the config value. Okay, so we have a config value of 1. We have two interfaces defined by these things. So then this is actually a keyboard and trackpad combo, which perhaps makes this a little difficult, but let's see what we have here. So we have interface 0, so we have value 1 still. We have interface 0 is subclass 1 in 81. So that part's the same. Interface 0 is actually the same. But this has a trackpad, so like maybe it also presents as a mouse? I'm not sure. I don't think it works in CircuitPython as a mouse, but I'm not sure. Interface 1 says class 3, subclass 1 in is 82. So that's actually different. This is subclass 0. And then interface 2, it says, is subclass 0, and then that is in 83. So, but these are like addresses or whatever, right? We're reading from that, aren't we? Because this is 81 right here. If I read from 83, I wonder if the trackpad would work. So this currently will set the mouse to the last one in the list, right? Because it loops over everything it found, and during each iteration, it sets mouse. So mouse gets set to the first device, the first iteration. It gets set to the second device, the second iteration, which then means here it gets detached and it does all of this stuff. So the keyboard, did I say mouse? I think I meant keyboard when I was saying mouse, if I was. But if we just did 83, because this is saying in 83. I'm kind of like making a guess that maybe subclass 0 means mouse. But I mean, we were reading from 81 on the actual mouse. I don't know. Let's try this, though. I'm curious what happens if we do this. I'm going to make the buffer bigger because I'm pretty sure there's a thing where this doesn't actually restrict the size of the buffer. I'm going to make this 64. I'm going to print read count, and also just print the mouse buffer when we get data. All right, so that will do its thing. We are here. The actual mouse that I have been using doesn't do anything. And if I grab the keyboard, does the... That was the file, right? Reset. No, the trackpad still does not do anything. And I would be detached from the kernel, so like Control-C doesn't do anything, none of the keys do anything. I mean, this code's not listening for keys, so... But also we detached from the kernel, so we're not getting any keys. Let's try 82. I'm just curious now if I could actually like read the trackpad at all on this multi-Logitech board that I have. Oh, there we go. Okay, we read... Yeah. We read 4 bytes. We read 4 bytes. My array is 64 because I want it to be big enough in case it actually had more than 4 bytes. This is probably the mouse though, right? This is probably the trackpad. Oops. Because 4 bytes is a mouse. Also, our thing is gone, so it probably got moved. Yeah, look at that. That's trackpad action right there. Sweet. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But we had to detach to get that. Did we have to detach the whole thing? What does this say? What is that number? Multiple implementation. What is that number 0? Interface. Ooh, I think we could detach the track. So when I don't, you probably can't see this very well, sorry, but I have this, right? Keyboard, Logitech keyboard, there's a trackpad on this part of it. We pass in an interface here. This code is saying we have 3 interfaces. We now know that interface index 1 is the trackpad, the mouse on this combo device. We should be able to detach interface 1 from the kernel, which will let our code read from the trackpad. And if that means what I think it means, theoretically, maybe we can also... The keyboard will still be connected to the kernel, which would mean we could still type, which would mean with one combo device like I have here, we could actually get keyboard and mouse both out of it potentially, which would be super cool. In fact, I could already do this, right? Like I could click this with this keyboard and then I could play Snake with the same? No. Oh, but I did detach earlier. I think we need another hard reset. I'm not sure if it needs a hard reset or a soft reset, but I'm going to give it a hard reset. So trackpad, click, and then Snake. Oh no, Snake's not working. Yeah, the keyboard's not working. Okay. Should we set configuration? Does that take an index? Maybe I need that to be 1 instead? Say 1. Set the active configuration. Configuration. So the device. So it goes device has a number of configurations, which has a number of interfaces. We have 3 interfaces. I guess presumably we have 1 configuration only. Yeah. Is that his config value? Okay. What are classes and subclasses? Okay, we need to find the list of those, because surely one of those is just mouse, right? USB device, like descriptor device and sub device value table. I want like like a reference, like a list of numbers. Which one is what? Yeah, so we had class and subclass. They're calling class base class. That's fine. We have what? 0? No, we had 3? Class 3. And on our combo keyboard here, it's all 3 of them are class 3. HID. Okay, that makes sense. What are subclasses now, though? No, I want that open. I just want to go back to subclasses. If you have a page with a link that scrolls you, it should enable the back button to bring you back. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Is there subclasses on this page? It just goes right into base classes. That's pretty much what we want, though. I just need the subclass one now. Could I say defined subclass? Defined subclass codes? Is there not? There must just be a list of these, right? Like, why is there no... Like, I can just search, like, ASCII chart, right? And I get a list of this number goes with this thing. What is... I must not know the right name. Subclass... What are... Can I have, like... List of USB descriptor subclasses? This is descriptor device capability. there no subclass here? We need the HID. We need the HID device class specification. Why is this here? Stop. Go away. What are you doing? To page 8. Class codes. No subclass. Boot interface subclass. Unused. Alright, well that's pretty useless. Protocol. Codes. Mouse. Keyboard. Reserved. So that's what we would need. We need the protocol code. Just that one picture. Protocol. This page doesn't even talk about protocol. Just be protocols. How do we get the protocol? This interface, yeah, it's just like reading bytes. Well, we know mouse, this thing said mouse was, how did that go? Where's that at? Oh. It says mouse is 2 and keyboard is 1. So is there anywhere in this string where we have a 2 in this one and a 1 in the other one? So then maybe that's the protocol field. I'll say this is the mouse, this is the combo. This is not a very useful way of highlighting it. Not a very useful way of highlighting it. I was hoping for better. So we have semicolon instead of T. I have a 3 instead of a 2. That must be the number of interfaces. A lot of this is the same. I wish the highlight was not like a barely slightly different shade of blue than the background. Be kind of nice. There's a 2 instead of a 1. So keyboard, it looks like, has got the 1. Okay, there is a way. That's here, right? 3-1 matches the class and subclass. Could be class, subclass, protocol. Third description endpoint. Any other useful ones of these things? Description string? I lost that page again with that nice table or whatever. I kind of liked that table. I was trying to keep that open. Endpoint descriptor. So this talks about string here. Human readable. They're optional. Okay, I don't think we care about if it's optional. This just doesn't say, has protocols over there, but it just doesn't say anything about protocol in the descriptor. Endpoint descriptor. Do we need something in that? Points, interface, class, interface, sub. There is protocol. Why does that not show up? Was I spelling it wrong? Did I just not click through enough? There's also a device protocol. Signed by the USB org. So byte 0, byte 1, byte 2, byte 4, byte 5, byte 6. At the index of 6 should be the device protocol. So X6. That print 1 keyboard, 1 mouse. Got 4 for both of those. Okay, so then I think the next most promising is interface protocol, right? And that is at byte 7 of the interface descriptors. So does the subclass comes right before that at 6. So I'm assuming we should be able to say protocol 7 to read this byte. We can turn off that print 6. That's not going to be helpful. Okay, so on the first device, which is the actual mouse, we have interface 0, which has protocol 2. We have interface 1, which has protocol 0. And we know interface 0 was our actual mousing action. And so there's our protocol 2, which does match mouse for the protocol codes. Okay, so then keyboard, we have interface 0 is protocol 1, which is a keyboard. We have interface 1, which is protocol 2, which is the trackpad, the mouse. Nice. Okay, so that's how we can find a mouse. Now, when it comes to combination keyboard, mouse, trackpad, like I have, we still have the problem of if we're looping through the list and we're looping, like I guess we could say like, look for the device whose first interface is a mouse. Maybe that's what the logic could be. Like, if we're looking for a mouse, then we look for the device whose first interface is a mouse. And then maybe if we don't find one that is that, then maybe we look through the rest of the interfaces and see if we find one. So it would like look for a mouse by itself first and then fall back to looking for a trackpad maybe. Anyway, I think I am going to wrap it up for now. So thank you all for hanging out. I will